A young girl, presumably 11 years old, wakes up in an unknown land and a voice tells her to become the goddess of wisdom. Before things could be clarified further, the same girl wakes up from a nap, making it seem that the visual from earlier was just a memory. The girl gets up and walks up to a guy named Sakuragawa Kuro, asking him whether he remembers her or not. She reveals that she saved his life 2 years ago, and her name is Iwanaga Kotoko. Kotoko reveals that she knows everything about Kuro, and how his relationship with his girlfriend just ended recently, following up by asking Kuro out herself. Kuro makes fun of her for looking like a middle schooler, even though she is 17 now, and tells her about how his girlfriend, Yumihara Saki, broke up with him when she found out how much of a coward he is in front of a kappa that came out of a lake while the two were on a trip. Kuro is walking away when Iwanaga picks up on his lie, claiming that Kuro wasn't the one who ran away, but in reality the kappa got scared of Kuro, making Saki afraid of what kind of being he is in reality as well. Kuro gets angry and Iwanaga reveals that she is the goddess of wisdom who was kidnapped by yokai 6 years ago, telling her to be the mediator between the two realms and solve the supernatural problems of yokai, proving her point by showing her a prosthetic leg and eye. Iwanaga leaves and is informed by the ghost of a samurai on a bus that her help is needed in a library. Iwanaga takes Kuro with her, and the situation gets dangerous at the library when the Ayakashi bull turned out not to be in the mood to talk. Kuro saved her from getting injured after she attacked the Ayakashi recklessly, and left her speechless after he let the Ayakashi eat his arm and then healed it back completely unfazed. Ayakashi dies from eating Kuro's arm, and Kuro reveals that he had eaten the meat of 2 yokai when he was 11. Kuro visits his cousin in the hospital with flowers sometime later, followed by Iwanaga, and reveals to her that he had eaten the flesh of a mermaid and another yokai back in the day, which gave him supernatural healing power instead of the immortality from the flesh of the mermaid. Iwanaga invites Kuro to join her for a trip to the Mountain Guardian to help him in a case, but Kuro initially rejects, claiming that he'd rather eat miso soup at home. Iwanaga visits the Guardian, who is a giant serpent with some soup from Kuro's place, and asks the Guardian snake about its problem. The snake reveals that recently a woman named Aoi had thrown the body of a person named Yoshihara in a storm, wishing that it would be quickly found. The serpent couldn't fathom the situation since he is not a man-eating spirit, and asks Iwanaga to explain why the girl would wish for something like that. Kuro follows Iwanaga up the mountain and listens while Iwanaga explains. She explains that Aoi's boyfriend was killed after he was caught stealing his company's money, and 2 years later, Yoshihara himself accepted that he was the one who killed Aoi's boyfriend, Machi. After explaining multiple possible reasons for Aoi's wish for the body's quick discovery, Iwanaga concluded that Aoi must be protecting Machi's brother, who had killed Yoshihara out of anger, dumping the body in the lake, hoping that the guardian snake would eat the body and the rain would wash any evidence. Kuro reveals himself, and since the explanation was still lacking solely because Aoi had confessed a lot to the police already, the serpent further asks Iwanaga for the truth to satisfy his lingering questions. Iwanaga proceeds with her explanation of what would actually be the reason behind dumping a body and praying for it to be found. She explains that Aoi intentionally confessed to the police to make them doubt her sanity, so that she can find something else that she threw in the lake herself with the help of the police. The explanation starts making sense, and Iwanaga further explains that Machi had been falsely accused of cheating before dying, and when Aoi moved away alone, she realized that she was expecting Machi's child. Aoi did a miscarriage at home caused by all the hate, and threw the fetus in the serpent's lake. When she realized that Yoshihara was the one who framed her boyfriend, Aoi couldn't take the guilt, and did all this just to get the fetus found out and give it a proper funeral. The serpent accepted the explanation, and while Kuro and Iwanaga returned in a cab, she explained to him that she had given the serpent the most plausible explanation before she passed out from exhaustion. A time frame of 2 years pass, and a college student gets into a car accident caused by the spirit of steel, Lady Nanase, the spirit of an idol without a face who carries a huge steel beam. Saki, who is now a policewoman, talks about her investigation of the case with a fellow officer, and reveals that according to her gut feeling, Steel Lady Nanase is real. Saki also remembers witnessing Kuro's supernatural healing and the kappa getting scared of him, causing her to throw up from fear. She completes her duties for the day and is walking back home when she ends up running into Iwanaga, who warns her to go back. It turns out that Iwanaga was fighting Steel Lady Nanase, and Saki, being tired of running away from all this and Kuro in the past, decides to face her fear and attacks the spirit. She ends up doing nothing since she is a human, and Iwanaga kicks the spirit, causing it to run away, after which she loses her prosthetic leg. Iwanaga realizes that Saki is Kuro's ex and irritates Saki by introducing herself as Kuro's current girlfriend. Saki takes Iwanaga to her place and asks her about Kuro while treating her wounds. She ends up on the decision that Iwanaga is just a stalker of Kuro, and backs her reason for leaving Kuro as him not being a human. Iwanaga accepts that even though Kuro is not human, after all, she is something similar to that. Saki makes coffee for Iwanaga, and is convinced that Steel Lady Nanase will end up committing murder soon if she's not stopped. Iwanaga admits that Kuro has been missing for a week, telling her not to look for him, which starts a petty conversation between the two on who is more suitable to be Kuro's girlfriend. Iwanaga heads out and annoys Saki before she leaves on a giant skeleton yokai for a ride back home. Saki starts to interrogate more about Nanase and finds out that she was not the most popular model before she found a role in a late-night drama, causing her to blow up. Saki comes across a wiki page that was made after the spirit, Steel Lady Nanase, covering Karin's dark past. Nanase Karin's career was at its peak when the unfortunate accident of her father's death turned things around. Nanase got blamed for killing her father and calling it an accident herself, and she never took roles in TV anymore. She left her house to stay low profile and started moving from hotel to a hotel. The next day at the police station, Saki concludes that Nanase must be a vengeful spirit who is after society, since they blamed her for killing her father. However, Iwanaga comes up with a different conclusion, stating that Nanase has no personality of her own, and is just going after some sorts of orders to commit violence. Saki dug deeper into the death of Nanase and found out that she died after getting crushed under steel beams on a construction site. The police found her body after the report of a nearby resident, and since everything above her neck was crushed, they could only identify the body by using her items and matching fingerprints. Iwanaga had sent a yokai to secure information from Saki, and was waiting at a restaurant herself for Saki, when a yokai informed her about the movement of Nanase. She reaches the location, only to find Kuro standing against Steel Lady Nanase. Iwanaga decides to watch the fight go down from a distance, and gets concerned about how Kuro is still unfazed despite having no martial art or sports training, till Saki arrives and watches from the sidelines as well. Steel Lady Nanase starts to attack Kuro and corners him before smashing his whole skull open with her steel beam. Saki ends up trembling from fear, as Kuro's body restores itself, regrowing the entire head, and the fight between the two continues with the mystery of Steel Lady Nanase's spirit still left to be dealt with.